Welcome to Storytime, Little Mead. This afternoon I'm going to read you The Smartest Giant in Town by Julia Donaldson. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched-up gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. Here he is, the scruffiest giant in town. Some other giants behind him there looking very smart, but not George. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. "Now I'm the smartest giant in town," he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very, very long and so very cold. I wish I had a nice warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming undone anyway," he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. "It made a magnificent sail." "Thank you," said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." He's being very kind, isn't he? George came to a tiny, ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "Oh, what's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked Mother Mouse. "It burned down, and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." Can you see that? Let me show you. So there's the Mother Mouse, and all her baby mice are sad because they have nowhere to live. Do you think George is going to be kind and help them? I hope so. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said. As the mouse and her baby scrambled inside, the shoe made a perfect home for them. Thank you, they squeaked. George, who had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George then came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. You see which fox is crying, this one here. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said as the fox snuggled into it. "It made a very fine sleeping bag." "Oh, thank you," said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, and one of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. There's the dog next to the bog. So a bog is mud, very thick, squelchy, wet mud. "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. Oh, I wish there was a safe, dry path." "Oh, cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "I was squashing my tummy anyway." And he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. "Oh, thank you," said the dog. Here he goes, getting across the bog. George has been really kind. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt on a boat is a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, my belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but..." "Oh, huh? My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, "I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes," he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. "Oh no," cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. "My gown," he yelled. "My dear old gown and sandals." George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the cosiest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. And you know what? When he got home, outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said, "open it." George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Now this is the card from all those animals whom he helped. Inside it said, "You gave your scarf to a cold giraffe, your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse, and one of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town." There he is. Oh, there he is. And that's a lovely story. So this giant, there he is, looking smart, helped all those other animals without thinking about himself, gave up all his clothes, helped all the others, and then at the end they got to say thank you. They gave him a present after he had shared all that he had. Thank you for listening to the story, Little Mead. Hope you're all safe and well, and if you want to, you can listen to me read you a story again tomorrow.